is sponsored by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the regulators of capital markets in Zambia.
Hello? John, I think we have talked about this. Tell those people to get that $4 million, put it in the $30 million account. That's where I want that money to be. But where is the problem? We will deliver the goods as agreed.
They say a man is supposed to protect his family, provide, secure their future.
We're doing this in 3 weeks. 3 weeks? From 2 to 4?
I was supposed to buy my family a house, a place we could finally call home.
Of course, if you go beyond 200, we're talking 1 week.
Oh, don't tell me. You'll make me...
My business.
You'll make me run around and find that money and make sure that... these things. Money is money.
I served every kwacha for years and sacrificing, but now it's all gone. I should have known better. I trusted someone I didn't fully understand. Went for the quick fix, and now I'm paying the price.
Chando, you know what your dad was saying this morning before he left? He was saying, oh, I'm very excited. I'm going to run that 100 meters. You know the one for the parents at your school? He was like, I'm going to win.
You should just sit down. He's too old for that.
You want me to tell him? Okay. People are not loyal. That is here. I'll be back.
Oh yeah, and that. I can't wait to move into the new house. Because I already started making plans and I told all my friends about it.
I can't tell her. How do I explain that I lost everything? The house, our future. I felt them all. I have to fix this. I can't give up. There has to be a way. Next time, I will check the facts and trust the right people. I thought my story ended when I lost everything. But maybe this is just the beginning.
A good investor understands that the social media influencers cannot understand the personal circumstances of their followers. So, their recommendation could not be suitable.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's 15 hours and welcome to the Securities and Exchange Commission monthly town hall. My name is Tali Mwala Mugala. I'll be your host for today. We'll just give it a few more minutes so that we can admit a bit more people. Otherwise, you're welcome to today's town hall. As we wait for people, we're going to play a video from our scams awareness campaign. Johnny.
Beware, scammers are getting smarter, and with mobile money and digital payments, it's easier than ever to fall for a fake deal. Don't get caught. Before you send money or invest, make sure you're financial service provider. Protect your money. Stay alert. Be a smart investor. This message is brought to you by the Securities and Exchange Commission, protecting investors in the capital markets. Beware, scammers are getting smarter, and with mobile money and digital payments, it's easier than ever to fall for a fake deal. Don't get caught. Before you send money or invest, make sure you're dealing with a licensed financial service provider. Protect your money. Stay alert. Be a smart investor. This message is brought to you by the Securities and Exchange Commission, protecting investors in the capital markets.
Okay, there you have it. So that was a video on scams, a scam alert. So that is coming out of our scams and fraud campaign that the Commission has been running since October this year. We launched it alongside the World Investor Week that we had, and we are running the scams campaigns throughout this year, and will be extended into the next year because we have seen a high prevalence of scams in the country. So we are just trying to alert the public so that you keep your money safe and that you're not defrauded. And in the same vein, we also launched, starting last week on Sunday, a program called The Money Mysteries. It's also a series, a 5-part series, which just talks about how you can invest in the capital markets, how you can secure your funds, again, from fraudsters, and the options that you have in the market, the safe options that you have in the market. I'll ask the team to play a video from our first episode that was aired last week on Sunday.
This movie is sponsored by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the regulators of capital markets in Zambia.
Hello? John, I think we have talked about this. Tell those people to get that $4 million, put it in the $30 million account. That's where I want that money to be. But where's the problem? We will deliver the goods as agreed.
They say a man is supposed to protect his family, provide, secure their future.
We're doing this in 3 weeks. 3 weeks? From 2 to 4 weeks.
I was supposed to buy my family a house, a place we could finally call home.
Of course, if you go beyond 200, we're talking 1 week.
Oh, don't tell me. You make me
my business.
You make me run around and find that money and make sure that these things. Money is money.
I served every kwacha for years and sacrificing, but now it's all gone. I should have known better. I trusted someone I didn't fully understand. Went for the quick fix, and now I'm paying the price.
Chando, you know what your dad was saying this morning before he left? He was saying, oh, I'm very excited. I'm going to run that 100 meters. You know the one for the parents at your school? He was like, I'm going to win.
You should just sit down. He's too old for that.
You want me to tell him? Okay. hope I'm not loyal. Dad is here. I'll be back.
Oh yeah, and Dad, I can't wait to move into the new house because I already started making plans and I told all my friends about it.
I can't tell her. How do I explain that I lost everything? The house, our future. I felt them all. I have to fix this. I can't give up. There has to be a way. Next time, I will check the facts and trust the right people. I thought my story ended when I lost everything. But maybe this is just the beginning.
A good investor understands that the social media influencers cannot understand the personal circumstances of their followers. So, their recommendation could not be suitable.
Okay, there we have it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've just joined us, welcome to today's town hall. My name is Isabel Kapotwe-Nkonde, and thank you for joining us here at the Securities and Exchange Commission. What we're just watching is a 5-part series that the SEC just launched on ZNBC TV1. It's called The Money Mysteries. It's a short video that just talk about wise money habits and how best you can secure your investments. And so our first episode was aired last week on Sunday at 21 hours. We had our CEO come on board and just explain the concepts and set the tone for the rest of the videos. So please tune in. Would encourage you to watch The Money Mysteries every Sunday at 21 hours, just after the Sunday interview. So today we have an interesting topic yet again. We are looking at the overview of the securities regulatory framework and its importance to investor protection. As you know, the SEC's core mandate is investor protection, so we are very passionate about it, and our job is just to ensure that you as an investor are safe in the capital markets. This also goes out to would-be investors so that you can also just know what space you are investing in. So our presenter for today is Ms. Isabel Kapotwe-Nkonde. She's a legal officer here at the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'll now hand over to Isabel to just give her presentation. Isabel? Okay.
Thank you so much, Stali. Good afternoon, everyone. As has already been stated by Stali, my name is Isabel Kapotwe-Nkonde, and I'll be your presenter for today's town hall meeting. We have a very exciting and interesting topic, which is an overview of the securities regulatory framework and its importance for investor protection. I'll be sharing the screen shortly. Okay, sharing. Okay, so the presentation outline is, as you can see on the screen. I'll firstly begin by speaking about what the SEC is, what is the mandate of the SEC. I will then give a very brief explanation on what the capital markets are, what this sector is all about, and then go to the heart of the presentation, the substantive part, which is the securities regulation and regulatory framework. And under this part, I'll look at the various components that form part of the securities regulatory framework. And then I'll also look at the regulatory powers that are vested in the SEC under this securities regulatory framework. I'll then tie it to investor protection by showing how these regulations under the Securities Regulatory Framework are important for investor protection, and then we shall conclude. So let's get into it. Who is the SEC? So put simply, the SEC is the regulator of the capital markets, and the SEC is established pursuant to the repealed Securities Act. Repealed simply means that that act is no longer in force. So it was replaced by the current Securities Act of 2016, and the existence of the SEC has been continued under the current Securities Act of 2016. So the SEC is also one of the 3 financial sector regulators, the other 2 being the Bank of Zambia, which regulates the money markets, and also the Pensions and Insurance Authority, which regulates the pensions and insurance sector. So under this act, the SEC has been given a mandate, which is dual or twofold. And this simply means that on one hand, the SEC has a mandate to protect investors in the capital markets. And also on the other hand, it has a mandate to ensure that the capital markets are developed. And the SEC also has a vision and a mission, which are embedded in its strategic plan of 2022 to 2026. And a reading of this vision and the mission will show that the mandate of the SEC is reflected in the vision and the mission. So I'll just quickly read the vision. It's to be a dynamic regulator of a capital market that is the preferred destination for investments. And the mission is to safeguard interests of investors and promote the growth of capital markets for individual and national prosperity. So now we have established that the SEC is a regulator of the capital markets. The next question that would ordinarily follow is, what are these capital markets? So as I mentioned earlier, the financial sector has 3 sectors, and these are the money markets and the pension and insurance sectors and the capital markets. So to put it simply, the capital markets are markets that are used by businesses to raise long-term financing from the public by selling products under the Securities Regulatory Framework, such as shares or corporate bonds. And borrowing under the capital markets is in the long term as opposed to the short term, which is the case in the money markets. The capital markets are also a platform where the government raises revenue by selling government bonds to the public. So in a nutshell, the capital markets are a platform where investors buy products under the Securities Regulatory Framework, such as equity or shares, long-term debt or bonds, and units in a collective investment scheme for a return. So now we come to the substantive part of this presentation, which is the Securities Regulatory Framework. So before I delve into it, I'd like to explain what a regulatory framework is. So a regulatory framework is basically an entire set of laws that govern a particular sector. So when we say the Securities Regulatory Framework, it's simply the entire set of laws that govern the capital markets. And these are what you can see on the screen. So we have the Securities Act number 14 of 2016, which was amended by Act number 21 of 2022. We have subsidiary legislation. We have other regulatory instruments, international standards, and other sources. And I'll go a bit into detail on each one of these as we proceed with the presentation. So the very first piece of law that we have under the Securities Regulatory Framework is the Securities Act. This might be referred to as the enabling primary or parent act. Why? Because this is the act from which all the other pieces of legislation are derived from. So the act provides for the enactment of subsidiary legislation and other regulatory instruments. The act also provides for various regulatory powers to the SEC, and we're going to look at these in a bit more detail. So under the Securities Act, the SEC has been vested with authority to license securities exchanges. What's a securities exchange? A securities exchange is basically a platform where securities are bought and sold, for instance, the LUCI. So before an entity can operate as a securities exchange, it ought to be licensed by the SEC. And before the SEC can issue such a license to such an entity to operate as a securities exchange, it ought to be satisfied that certain conditions have been met. So for instance, the SEC would have to be satisfied that this entity is going to run its securities business in the securities exchange in such a manner, in an orderly manner that will promote investor protection. We also have licensing of intermediaries. Intermediaries include brokers, investment advisors, and before these persons can come into the capital market space and conduct securities business, they ought to get a license from the SEC. And this, for instance, if it's an investment advisor, the SEC would have to be satisfied that this is a fit and proper person to conduct such securities business, thereby protecting investors. We also have authorization of collective investment schemes. Before a collective investment scheme can be established as such in the capital markets, the Commission ought to authorize it. And the same thing applies. The Commission ought to be satisfied that certain conditions have been met. For instance, the Commission would have to be satisfied that the manager of the CIS is one who is suitable for such a role. And the end goal is investor protection. We also have registration of securities. So before an issuer can issue their securities to the public, they ought to have those securities registered with the SEC. And this function enables the SEC to protect investors in that process, these issuers will have to disclose pertinent information that will enable investors to make an informed decision even as they invest. And there's an obligation that is placed pursuant to the Securities Act on an issuer, a continuing obligation to make known to the public any information that might affect the value of the securities. So that is a function, that is a power that has been vested in the Securities and Exchange Commission for the protection of investors. You also have the recognition of self-regulatory bodies. So a self-regulatory body is basically a body that creates and enforces its own rules. For instance, the LUCI. Before it can be recognized as a self-regulatory body, the Commission would similarly have to be satisfied that certain conditions have been met. The Securities Act also vests in the Commission regulatory powers over licensees, and these include supervision, enforcement, and we shall go a bit into detail as we proceed. Subsidiary legislation. So as we've started with the Securities Act as the first piece of legislation under the framework, and under the Act, we now have subsidiary legislation that is created. And the use of this subsidiary legislation is to implement those objectives that have been stated in the Securities Act. So for instance, we talked about registration of securities. So that might be stated in broad terms in the Act, but then how to go about that process, that registration process, will be stated in the subsidiary legislation. Other than subsidiary legislation, we also have other regulatory instruments. So these are instruments that are published by the SEC, for instance, directives, boards, guidelines, and these are created or issued by the SEC pursuant to the Securities Act. And the aim of these regulatory instruments is to achieve the objectives in the Act, to achieve the objectives as well in the subsidiary legislation. We also have international standards under the Securities Regulatory Framework. So you find that the SEC aims at aligning its operations in line with international standards. For instance, the IOSCO objectives. The IOSCO is simply the International Organization of Securities Commissions, which has principles of securities regulation, and also the Financial Action Task Force FATF guidelines. So you find that even in the amendment of 2016, the content of that act aligns with IOSCO objectives, aligns with these international standards. Even in the other regulatory instruments that will be made by the Commission, they align with these international standards because the end goal of these standards is to protect investors. Lastly, we have judicial precedent and authoritative authors on securities law. Judicial precedent is simply case law. So where a securities matter goes before the Capital Markets Tribunal or any of the courts, the High Court, the Court of Appeal, the decision that will be made by the court in that matter, the judgment, forms case law. And it forms part of the regulatory framework. We also have authoritative authors on securities law. So where we have those authors that are authoritative in the securities sphere, that also forms part of our regulatory framework. So now we have looked at the regulatory framework. We have looked at the components of the regulatory framework. Now we come to the question, how is this important to investor protection? So to put it generally, securities regulation establishes various mechanisms which we shall look at to protect investors. And the securities regulations also ensure that investors are kept aware of any information that might affect them, and we'll go into detail as we proceed. So these are the investor protection mechanisms that we have. So under the gatekeeping functions, we have spoken a bit about this. We have the licensing of securities exchanges and intermediaries. We have the registration of securities. We have the authorization of CISs. The gatekeeping functions serve as an investor protection mechanism because before any capital market player can come into the capital market space, the Commission has to be sure or has to be satisfied that such capital market player has satisfied certain conditions, and these conditions go to protect investors. The Commission also has to be sure that if it's a person, this is a fit and proper person to come into this capital market space, and the end game is the protection of investors. We also have supervision, and it includes inspections, surveillance, and complaints, and I will go a bit more into detail as I proceed. We also have enforcement, where we have investigations that flow from the complaints, enforcement and litigation. And we have investor education and awareness programs such as the Chaching Schools program, financial market clubs, campaigns. I think if you joined us early enough, you would have seen some of these campaigns. So we have talked about the gatekeeping function. Now we come to supervision. After these players have been licensed or have been authorized, how does the Commission now make sure that they comply with the regulations under the Securities Regulatory Framework for protection of investors? This is when supervision now comes in. So the Commission has power to inspect. It can inspect records, documents of capital market players to ensure that there is this compliance with the regulations under this under the Securities Regulatory Framework. And under this head, the Commission will also ensure that only those who have been licensed, only those who have been, only those schemes that have been authorized can operate in the capital market space, and thereby protecting investors. There's a table in which we show how the supervision of capital market players is done, but I think the key takeaway here is that supervision is firstly to ensure that there's compliance with the securities regulatory framework by these capital market players, and then also to ensure that only those who have been licensed or only those schemes that have been authorized can operate in the capital market space. Now, we also have disclosure requirements as an investor protection tool. So we keep on speaking about investor protection. So what are investors being protected from exactly? So investors are being protected from misleading, manipulative, or fraudulent practices. How is this done? This is done by ensuring that the capital market players make full disclosures that enable investors to make well-informed decisions. So, because if investors have full information from capital market players, they won't be misled or manipulated. It won't be easy to manipulate them. So disclosure, this is why the SEC is a disclosure-based regulator. I gave an example earlier on of after registration of securities has been done, that there's an obligation on the issuer to continue giving information to the public that may affect the value of the securities. And this goes to the same thing that I've stated. This is to ensure that there's transparency and a level playing field for all investors in the market. And also this is to avoid information asymmetry. Information asymmetry simply is where I can simply put it as if there's a transaction between two people and one person has more information than the other person. So that disclosure requirement under the securities regulatory framework is to avoid such cases so that it's transparent and fair for all investors. We now go to enforcement as a safeguard for investors. So under the securities regulatory framework, the SEC is vested with power to investigate breaches of securities laws, either on its own volition or where it receives a complaint. So it will undertake investigations. It also will allow the alleged offender to show cause why enforcement action should not be taken. And where it is found that indeed there has been a breach of the securities regulatory framework, the Commission has power to compound the offense. Compounding simply means that as opposed to taking the criminal route, the Commission will then impose an administrative sanction. So an administrative sanction would be a fine, a private or a public censure. A censure is basically a reprimand or a warning to this offender to state that, look, the Commission is aware of what is happening and it shouldn't be done. So that is what a censure is. It can be private or public. The Commission also has power to suspend, revoke, or cancel licenses, and it can also issue regulatory directives. In certain instances, the Commission can even refer, upon its investigations, it can refer to law enforcement such as the DEC, so that these offenses can be criminally prosecuted. Lastly, the Commission can also institute market misconduct proceedings, and these proceedings are commenced in the Capital Markets Tribunal. So on the enforcement part, the key takeaway for investor protection is that it is aimed at curtailing or stopping this breach of the regulatory framework. And this goes to protect investors. So if there's a scam that is running in the market and the commission conducts its investigations, concludes, and enforces, it means that that scam would be curtailed, thereby protecting investors. This mechanism also serves as a deterrent to would-be offenders, because if there are persons in the capital market space who see that there are actually sanctions for those who breach the securities regulatory framework, it will be a deterrent to them, and they'll avoid at all costs to breach the framework. Awareness is also a mechanism for investor protection. As I stated earlier, if investors are aware, it will be difficult to manipulate or mislead them if they have the financial education and awareness. So to this end, the SEC engages in education of investors by providing them with the necessary knowledge to make informed decisions in the capital markets. Such a program is the one that we have right now, which is a town hall meeting. We also have World Investor Week, which raises investor awareness. So to conclude, the SEC regulates the capital markets, and it has a dual mandate of investor protection and capital market development, as we have seen. It's also one of the three financial sectors. It is a financial market for the selling and buying of equity or shares, long-term debt or bonds and units in investment schemes. And the securities regulatory framework comprises of the Securities Act, subsidiary legislation, other regulatory instruments, international standards, and judicial precedent. And this regulatory framework provides the SEC with various regulatory powers with the aim of protecting investors. And as we have seen, the securities regulation is essential as it establishes various mechanisms for investor protection. And these mechanisms include supervision, disclosure, awareness, and enforcement. We'll open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Isabel, for that elaborate and wonderful presentation. And as rightly put, we will now open up for questions. We do have some comments in the chat that we can start with. So the first question is coming from Deepen Chpeta. It's saying, what concrete steps is SEC taking to strengthen enforcement against unlicensed investment schemes that continue to target Zambians? Yeah, Isabel, you can start with that one. So we do have the rest of the SEC team. We have our managers on the call. So the SEC team is on hand to just assist with all the questions. So our first question is coming from Deepen Chpeta. What concrete steps is SEC taking to strengthen enforcement against unlicensed investment schemes that continue to target Zambians?
That's a very good question. I'll refer it to Mr. Eugene Chisenga, as I feel he'll have a more precise answer.
Okay. Mr. Tsenga, could you assist us? Team, could I ask that you upgrade Mr. Tsenga to a panelist, or all the managers, so that we can assist with the questions on the call?
Mr. Chisenga has been upgraded.
Audible enough? Yes, please. You can go ahead, Mr. Tsenga. So our question is coming from Deepen Chpeta. I don't know if you heard me. He's asking, what concrete steps is SEC taking to strengthen the enforcement against unlicensed investment schemes that continue to target Zambians?
Yeah, just like Isabel had earlier mentioned, first of all, we can only operate within the confines of the law, and we can only take steps that are permissible within the law. So amongst the steps that we are taking as a commission, we are first of all trying to do the preventative aspect by ensuring that we bring to the public the identified fraudulent collective investment schemes, and we are doing this through issuing of notices, which we are publishing even on our Facebook. And the second aspect is that where we've got found, or where we've found evidence security-related breaches in the same unauthorized collective investment schemes, we do investigate. And upon the findings of our investigations, there are various interventions that the Commission is putting, just like what Isabel alluded to, including public censures, we do fines, as well as the other enforcement actions. And where we feel our powers are limited, we can also refer such cases to other law enforcement agencies like Zambia Police and the drug enforcement agents, so that we work in collaboration to make sure that the culprits or those perpetrators are brought to book. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tsenga. While we still have you on the call, Mr. Tsenga, we have another question from an anonymous attendee. He's asking, does SEC regulate stable coins such as USDC? ELOS is a product. Is there VASP and TSP? They do not also still need a license from SEC if they do not hold users' funds, create accounts, and only allow for the user or customer to swap. The question is not very clear, but I think it's just asking whether we regulate stable coins, which I know we don't, and Mr. Tsenga can just shed more light on that.
Yeah, just like you have right pointed out, as Zambia, we are trying to come up with the regulations regarding the cryptos, including those stable coins. And for now, I think there's no regulations regarding those, but there's something that is being done in collaboration with the two other regulators, being the PIA as well as the Bank of Zambia. And once this is done, public shall be informed accordingly.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Tsenga. We have another question. This is coming from Emmanuel Sabuni. Considering global cases like the Bernie Madoff scandal, what specific oversight tools, audit requirements, and market surveillance systems does the SEC Zambia use to detect and prevent fraud and investment schemes, especially those that may mimic legitimate investment products? Okay, I know we have the supervision team here, Lucy and Maggie. Maybe we could shed more light on our surveillance systems.
Lucy, you've been unmuted. You may go ahead and speak.
Lucy, are you there? Do we have a supervision team?
Yes, Lucy is joining. She's there. Lucy, you can go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. So I think the question has been noted. It's a critical question that we would have to find out. So the Commission has some mechanisms and some tools that we use to identify the scams. As you may have noted, we've been able to issue a few alerts to alert the public on the scams that we've been able to identify. And unfortunately, we are unable to share which tools we have been using, so that we are still able to just continue operating and using them. to ensure that we are able to find and identify the scams as they go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie, for that. Okay, we have another question from Deepen. Deepen is asking, does SEC have a long-term strategy for mass financial literacy targeting rural and urban communities? I'll take that one. So yes, we do have financial literacy programs that we are carrying out as a SEC. We do have we do ride on strategies such as the National Strategy for Financial Education and National Financial Inclusion Strategies. So we do have several programs that we're carrying out as a commission to target rural areas as well as urban areas so that we just ensure that the nation is financially literate. And we do have programs that start as early as primary school that we intend to roll out coming January so that we inculcate a saving culture from a young age. That way, we hopefully will have a financially educated population in the near future. Maybe Mbanga would like to add to that. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Stanley, thank you. I think just to build on what you said, I think you've laid the foundation. We deliver is the National Strategy on Financial Education, but also just to maybe amplify around the National Financial Inclusion Strategy 2, 2024 to 2028, we do have a categoric thematic area for financial inclusion in rural areas. That is basically aimed at promulgating access to formal financial products and services, but also promulgating on the usage aspect issues to do with behavior. Beyond that, there's also a need to address issues around infrastructure, which will enable rural participants to better participate in the financial sector. It is an area that is covered within the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, which the SEC is a co-implementer of, along with Finance and National Planning and other co-regulators. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mbanga, for that. And I'll put you on the spot once again. The next question is speaking to, is SEC regulating digital investment platforms? And they're asking the question on peer-to-peer lending platforms and crowdfunding platforms that operate across borders. Maybe you could just shed more light on our sandbox approach for this kind of platforms.
Okay, thank you. So currently, what the SEC is using to regulate innovative products that are being deployed in the capital markets is the regulatory sandbox framework for capital markets. Essentially, this framework tries to, first of all, from the regulator side, to better understand the innovations, how they are being developed, and how they'll be subsequently deployed in the capital markets. And it also tries to address regulatory barrier in a sense that there could be some products that are not catered for in the Securities Act 2016, which I think is touched on broadly. So it does, I think, accommodate for innovative products such as crowdfunding platforms or peer-to-peer lending platforms. We are currently reviewing a second cohort applications into the sandbox, some of which are peer-to-peer lending platforms and crowdfunding platforms. So we do have, I think, a window where such innovations can be deployed in our capital market. I hope that addresses the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbanga. I'm sure that does address the question.
Maybe one other important aspect, Stanley, that I left out was I think the primary objective really of the sandbox is to test the innovation in a live environment and a controlled set of parameters. So I'll give an example. If you're running a crowdfunding platform and you apply to the SEC to be part of the sandbox, you will, as an innovator, through a consultative process, are certain specific parameters. This could be around the number of investors that will be allowed, how much money will be raised on the platform over a 12-month period, and also there is a possible extension of another 12 months. So once the Commission is confident that the innovation is running smoothly and investors are protected, we then lift the parameters and possibly allow you to deploy commercially. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mbanga, for that. So we have another question from Emmanuel Kasanda. He says, thank you for the presentation, Isabel. That's a lovely presentation. So my question is on investor protection. We've seen a rise in Ponzi schemes operating in Zambia, such as Triple Lift and similar platforms, many of which are not licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Since one of the SEC's mandate is to protect investors, what advice would you give the Commission on how it should effectively deal with these unregistered and unlicensed investment schemes that continue to operate and mislead the public? As you heard from our supervision team, and from Isabel's presentation, so yes, we do not regulate some of the institutions that you've mentioned. And what we are doing as a commission is to issue alerts to the public because we have seen a rise in the Ponzi schemes and other frauds that are out there. So we do issue alerts to just notify the public of signs of a fraud and whatnot. And also just for you to protect yourself. You're the first line of defense in order to protect your investment. So we do issue alerts where the public should know what a Ponzi scheme looks like and which ones are illegally operating in the market so that you stay away from them. But then again, I can just also pass it on to Isabel. Would you like to add anything to that? Or from the supervision team, is there anything you would like to add? If not, we can move to the next question in the interest of time. What guardrails does SEC expect firms to implement when using AI-driven models in portfolio construction or client recommendations? This, I'm sure, is for the supervision team. Maggie and Lucy, do we have a response to this one? Supervision team?
We also have Francis on the panel.
Okay, Francis, are you here? Did you get the question? Raphael is asking, what guardrails does SEC have? Does SEC expect firms, rather, to implement when using AI-driven models in portfolio construction or client recommendations?
Maybe I can take that one.
Yes, Mr. Eugene, please.
This issue of AI is good and bad, but what is important is that AI can only give out what is fed. For starters, before you can even look at the protocols for AI, it's a question of what is existing in place. What has the company determined before you feed into the AI? But what is important is, even if you have automated the system, there is always need for reviews and also just casual human intervention where necessary, especially if you're looking at issues to do with KYC. Yes, you can automate the issues of verifying the KYC, but the strong recommendation is that there has to be some human interface because certain information might be missed. So the starting point is, how do you design your protocols before you can even feed it to the AI? And also there should be need for constant reviews and also casual human intervention just to check out what is happening. But for KYC, the recommendation is that let it be done by a human at the most or at the basics. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tseka, for that response. We have another question from Cindy. Cindy is asking, are there accredited investors under SEC Zambia? If so, what are the requirements? Cindy, maybe you are asking if there are accredited investment advisors, because your question is saying, are there accredited investors? I take it you would like to know whether they are accredited investment advisors. So yes, we do have licensed investment advisors and that are operating in the market. So you will find them on our website under a section called dealers. You will check there and you'll be able to see the dealers that are operating in the market, or the capital market operators that are duly licensed are put up on our website. Then in terms of our requirements, we do have a set of requirements for one to join the market, and those two are put up on our website. But I'll ask the team to just put into the chat the set of requirements which are attached on our application form that should guide. Okay, our next question says, if a Ponzi scheme is discovered, what actions are taken to recover people's money who have lost money in the scheme? Supervision, as well as Mr. Eugene, could you assist with this one?
I think the first point of call is identification and reporting of such an illegal scheme. And it is important that even when you more like subject yourselves to such kind of a misery, before you even opt into the Ponzi scheme, check with the commission whether that fund or the scheme is approved. And also, you need to keep documentation. There is supposed to be some kind of a distinction between a securities offering and the normal offering in the money market. So depending on where that scheme is more leaning, if I may use that word loosely, there are various interventions that can come in. Like I had earlier indicated, we may refer the matter to the DEC so that we pursue the anti-money laundering aspect that is embedded in the illegal offering, because as you might know, money laundering basically proceeds from a predicate offense. So the act of getting money illegal from the public might amount to a predicate offense, which can basically lead to money laundering processes and can lead to the recovery of the proceeds of crime from the perpetrators. So I can say there's no straight-jacketed answer, but every intervention will be made depending on the nature of the scheme that is being actually the center of the controversy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that elaborate response, Mr. Eugene. I hope it answers your question to our guest. And then also, there was a question on the requirements to be a dealer or investment advisor in the market. So the team has posted a link. You can click on that link, you'll be able to follow, and it will show you the requirements that you need to operate in the market. Then we also have another question here from Obvious. Obvious is asking, what programs has SEC put in place to make sure potential investors, youth to be specific, get sensitization against fraud and fraud schemes apart from social media posts, also programs about promotion of legit investment schemes. So youth-led programs that we have as a commission, the Town Hall, for example, is one such initiative where we are trying to sensitize the public, youth inclusive, on the various vices that are out there, and also promoting legitimate investments that you can find in the capital markets by us speaking about the investment options that you have in the market. Then in terms of other programs, sensitization programs that we have for the youth, if you joined the town hall early today, you heard I mentioned that in October, we were running a youth-centered campaign, which is called the World Investor Week. And rather, one of the target groups for the World Investor Week campaign is youth. And in the categories for the messaging that we had, we did have messages against speaking against fraud and scams. Our posts are still there on social media, and the material is still there. And you can also just call us if you need any more information concerning the same. But going forward, we also have other programs that we do. We do national debates, which is also an initiative for youth to participate in the capital market and also just debate around topics such as fraud and scams. Okay, so the next question is, are the laws, rules, or operating procedures that require the SEC to respond to an investor complaint within a set period of time? This question is coming from Samit Jain, and he's asking in connection with the complaint that minority shareholders submitted to the SEC in March 2020, almost 6 years later, and the SEC has not shared the findings of this investigation. Okay, Mr. Eugene, maybe you can respond to Samit. I know this is something that can be dealt with outside this meeting.
Yeah, I think what we can do, we can get in touch with the person that have asked the question so that we get to know the details and we can come in and try to resolve the issue. It's a complex question and a problem that will need concerted effort from across the Commission. So I would urge that the person that have asked this question get in touch with us, and if possible, can even come tomorrow to our offices and try to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eugene. Samit, so as Mr. Eugene has put it, please get in touch with us so that our legal team and supervision team can sit down around the table and respond to your issue. We're almost at the end of our town hall for today. We have got a minute left. And the last question is, what is the latest update on the first cohort of peer-to-peer innovators that exited the sandbox at the end of last year? What are the next steps regarding those? Mbanga, here's your last question.
Thank you, Stanley, for that question. So the first cohort did actually come to an end, and all participants were subsequently exited. However, we have two innovators who are still undergoing a smooth wind down, and that basically entails overseeing how they will facilitate the payment of investors that put in money into platforms. So in as much as they were exited, they're still under the scrutiny of the SEC to ensure that investor funds are paid back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Manga. I hope that answers your question. So we have come to the end of our town hall. Thank you so much for your time. Please join us in the next town hall, the last for the year. And what we would ask you to do in the next town hall, as you join the meeting, or even today as you are exiting, is to give us a proposal of topics that you would like us to attend to in the coming year so that we plan to have those topics attended to and discussed in a town hall such as this one. And like I mentioned at the beginning of our town hall, our fraud and scams campaign is ongoing, and we have our Money Mysteries TV series, which is on TV1 on ZNBC at 21:05 every Sunday. So please join us. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
It's easier than ever to fall for a fake deal. Don't get caught. Before you send money or invest, make sure you're dealing with a licensed financial service provider. Protect your money. Stay alert. Be a smart investor. This message is brought to you by the Securities and Exchange Commission, protecting investors in the capital markets.